Mm.
Hi, Corrine.
Hi, Alex.
Just like to welcome everyone to Corrine Thomas. We know each other through working for the IIBA, I guess mainly, but also being on a contract at Nationwide
Yes, that's
for a
right.
while, which I'm sure we'll touch on at some point. Um,
Definitely.
thank you very much for contributing your time to help out. As I was saying before, this is all about helping inspire business analyst contractors who have a nagging doubt that there's something more they want to be doing.
Mm.
And I am forgetting and getting better at saying this part of the From Blooming to Blooming Work podcast. Never ceases to please me because it was such a clever name that I came up with.
Yeah, it's good. I like it. Blooming work.
I should be a brand consultant or something. I don't know, but yeah, thank you very much for joining. And I guess as we were talking before we started the interview,
Mm.
like everyone, you've got sort of like a unique story, and you don't fit into. I don't like my story. You know, I did BA contracting for many years, decades, and your period in BA contracting was sort of halfway through or whatever, and it's not something you've done for a long period, but it played an important
No.
part. So rather than sort of starting and focusing on that, I'm going to sort of start with telling your story as a BA, where you came from.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, as a BA, I've worked more as a permanent in organizations than as a contractor, and actually building the business analysis communities within several organizations.
Yeah.
But the last time I worked full-time in a corporate organization was in 2013. So
Right.
it's quite a while now.
Okay.
And I already had an ambition at that point to start moving into something else. I've always been, and I suppose because business analysts are curious and interested, I've always been interested in the people side of change as well as the technology.
Okay.
I did quite a lot of training around coaching, got coaching qualifications. And the last organization I worked in, I was actually part of building an internal coaching framework and got involved in some of the development of the leadership programs, as well as heading up the business analysis practice.
Okay.
I kind of knew what I wanted to do. I was made redundant, which actually I welcomed.
Right. Okay, that's good.
Then there was a whole big, oh my goodness, what next? And I think that's when you start to really learn about myself, because I felt more in charge of my own destiny then. However, it was really scary.
You said you welcomed it. I'm curious why you welcomed it.
What, the change or the redundancy? I think because I'd been for ages talking about wanting to leave and set up my own business and do my own thing, but I think I'd never quite taken the plunge or had the courage to do it. So actually the redundancy, and it wasn't just me, a whole swathe of people made redundant. It was that opportunity that made me make a decision.
I mean, that's really an important thing for me about the opportunity. It's you can plan things, but often it's about just seeing the opportunity and not letting it pass you by. So you had that opportunity, and then what?
And then I left, had a really nice big holiday I'd been planning for a long time anyway. It was just lucky that it all happened when it did. And I distinctly remember having Christmas, then coming back, sitting down at my nice shiny new home office I'd created, going, oh, what now? I've got no one to talk to. And for several months it was great, a lot of planning about what I wanted to do, but I did miss the people. And I think, and the financial side of things was a worry. So yes, I had a redundancy package, but it's actually where's the money going to come from? And it was at that point I did take a BA contract. That's where I think you and I were working together. On a contract, and it was a contract that included mentoring, so it was something I was looking at, coaching and mentoring anyway. So I enjoyed the work, but I discovered quite quickly that I didn't really want to be full-time contracting. I didn't want to be full-time in an organization. That's what I just left.
So was it just the full-time, or was it other aspects of that?
I think it was probably the full-time, because I still wanted to set up my own thing. I think if I'd been offered, say, a part-time, I probably would have stayed with it for longer.
Right. Okay.
But I think for me, what it did give me again was an income that I was worried about. So if you think I'd always been permanent, so I think that it's quite a big shift financially to suddenly go, oh, don't know when the money's going to come in. But I knew in my heart still wanted to pursue other things. So that did. It was a real dichotomy for ages, because it was that, okay, so I'm doing what I do love business analysis, and I enjoyed the job, and I had the opportunity to mentor, which I also enjoyed, and I had some money coming in, but in my heart I knew it wasn't really what I wanted to do long term. So I missed that freedom that I was craving to create something of my own.
Okay. And so how did you tackle that?
So I did. And I think it's something, I would recommend loads of people. So I did keep sitting back and going, oh, so what's really important to you? What is important to me? And this draw to do more coaching, to create something of my own that wasn't just business analysis, was drawing me really strongly. So then I had to sit down, I suppose, and have a fairly strict conversation with myself and my family. And my husband was like, well, this is what I really want to do. And create a financial plan.
Okay.
Because I did have a financial buffer. I still had my redundancy money. I was bringing money in through the contract. So I just kind of basically stopped panicking, which is what I think I was doing. And did it, okay, so you have got space here to just think about what you really want to do and put a few feelers out.
So was it tricky having that conversation? Because that's certainly something some of the people I work with struggle with, just even the thought of broaching the conversation.
Which one? The one around the
with your husband, and just saying, I'm not going to be presumably I'm not going to be earning as much as we used to for a period of time.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose I was quite fortunate at the stage of life I'm at, that we've got 2 children, and they had left home, they had left university at that point,
right,
or were close to. So our financial commitments had dropped quite a lot.
So the breathing space financially was sort of there to not make it too challenging.
Yeah, so that was, we worked through that was fine. I could afford to drop my salary. So yeah, on paper, logically, it would work. I think because I don't know, for me, our jobs and what we do, not necessarily how much we earn, but there's a lot of identity tied up in it. And that's what I discovered. I still had this huge identity of, I'm a business analyst, I do this. And it took a long time to change that.
Okay, that's intriguing.
And I still am a business analyst, by the way, at heart.
Yeah. That's it. Yeah, it's fascinating. So what has changed identity-wise?
I think for me, I am a business analyst, but I'm also a coach, and I love doing other things. I think for me, that the bit that really drives me is I love doing different things. I'm curious about stuff, which is probably why I was a business analyst. But I do love the people side of change. And I had got a bit worn down by some of the other sides of the job. I think that involved in sort of full-time working in big organizations.
So
I think it would
freedom. You wanted more freedom to choose what bits of job you were doing.
More freedom to choose what I was doing. So I kind of and I built what I think we talked about just before we came on here, is what other people might think of as a portfolio career now. So I do coaching. Coaching in itself is quite difficult to build a business with, just with coaching.
Yeah.
So I do use a lot of training, mentoring, and I've been fortunate to build relationships with companies where I work as an associate, but on my terms. I do part-time work for 2 or 3 different companies. Some of it's business analysis based, and some of it's more coaching.
Yeah. So I guess we're talking about a period of quite a few years as these things emerged and evolved.
Yeah. I mean, it's nearly 10 years since I left. my permanent role. So I've done that one full-time contract work job that you and I spoke about. I've also done, I think it was about 6 months of a part-time contract.
Right.
So I worked 2 days a week for somebody in a big company, but I went in purely doing business analysis or QA, quality assurance.
Right.
Which I really liked doing. It was quite challenging negotiating. So the person that brought me in was comfortable with it. Other people struggled to get their heads around this. So what do you mean you're only here 2 days a week? And largely project managers, yeah, but on my plan, what days are you going to be here? And I'd like, well, probably Tuesday and Wednesday, but it might be Wednesday and Thursday next week. But it, I enjoyed the work I did, was happy with what I did. But I think for that, it gave me that freedom to continue with other things I was doing. By that time, I was actually also working in a school, coaching children.
Right. Okay. And looking at your LinkedIn profile, I thought this is going to be interesting to try and portray the variety of things you do. I suppose it's I guess there's something we don't need, so we can sort of dive into some detail, whatever you would like to. Actually, I suppose we talked about portfolio, but I imagine it started and grew slowly. So you went contracting, and there must have been one thing I'm interested in is the balance. So there's a balance between I need to be bringing some money in, and maybe less so in your case, and maybe even for your own self-worth, you wanted to bring in some money anyway.
Yes.
But then there's also the balance between am I doing this because it's the money? Am I doing this because I love it? Am I doing it because of both? Is it Could you sort of give us a bit of flavor around that, around the roles you were doing? And
oh gosh, I think so. Some of them I would say I didn't do it now, but I was working with children in schools.
Yeah.
A lot of it was coaching children with confidence, mental health, well-being type stuff. That was because I loved doing it. Yeah, I did get paid for it, but it wasn't anything like being a BA contractor. Completely different thing. However, I also, alongside that, would be running training courses, and I did this part-time contract role. So that then kind of, from a financial aspect, balanced the books.
A bit more practical choice there.
Yeah. So as time's gone on, I suppose, I still have a financial buffer. But I found that having stepped away from that full-time role, whether it's contract or permanent, what I need is changed as well. And I think the pandemic's had a big impact on that. You suddenly realize, well, actually, what you need to live on isn't necessarily what you thought. I think you just live with what the more you earn, the more you spend, kind of thing. So,
yeah, burns a hole in your pocket.
So, and I live comfortably, and I'm very fortunate that I've got a partner, and we both are able to earn money, so we've got plenty for what we need. But I think my goals have changed. Again, what's important to me has changed.
I'm curious if it might be interesting to go down. It's a bit detailed budgeting, but the whole idea of what you need. I was posting recently, I remember, it's a bit banal really, but I used to go have a lunch every day when I was contracting. But in hindsight, and I was quite protective about this, even though I thought, well, I could have leftovers from last night. I would never do that. And in hindsight, I think it's partly because this is the payback. It's like, I don't necessarily want to be there, so I'm going to treat myself to a lunch every day, which wasn't something I needed, but it was almost compensating for being in a job that was wasn't fulfilling me. Wasn't giving me what I needed fully. How have things changed for you in terms of perhaps what you'd no longer need that perhaps you thought was important before?
Oh gosh,
this is like a therapy session, isn't it?
Like a therapy session. I'm trying to think. I suppose I get in the rhythm of life. I just think things I no longer think. I am thinking of things I did need that I didn't realize, and it wasn't financial. It was about connection to other people.
Yeah, you mentioned
that's quite important to me, and I didn't just realize till I went away. I think things like you think you need, and I'm not sure they're things you need. It's habits you get into. So working in a office tend to go out and buy lots of coffees, get coffee, go to the coffee shop, that kind of thing every day. Don't always do that now.
It's just
that's a small one.
Unthinking behaviours, really.
Yeah. And I suppose I used to spend a lot of time, not so much when I was in corporates because I work fairly close to home, but since when I first sort of set out on my own, actually working away from home and staying away from home, I didn't particularly enjoy that. And then that has a financial, obviously, I mean, my expenses were generally paid for, but there's still an overhead.
Okay. And what do you think? It all sounds very smooth.
It's not all smooth. It wasn't all smooth.
Where are the sort of, could you tell us about some of the bumps in the road?
Oh gosh. The bumps in the road, I think, is sometimes learning to say no to things, which might sound like, well, I've only just started off. If someone's just thinking of doing it, how could I ever say no? But I think I suppose one is having the confidence to get out there. And if something's important to you, go for it. But then the bumps, what I suppose is a couple of bumps in the road. Do I believe in myself enough to make this happen? And then I think the second one is then when things do start to come in, I would just say yes to everything and then find I was overloaded. And I'm like, oh, I've gone back where I started now. So why am I doing all this?
And what's that? Why did that change?
I think it's just finding that I was working too many hours. Part of the reason I wanted to change was to do things I love more, but also to get a better work-life balance.
Right. So,
and that's become more and more important to me as time's gone on.
So no longer the 9 to 5 and Monday to Friday.
No.
Freedom.
Yeah.
I suppose what would be useful as well is to explore maybe the practicalities, because you've developed, as you say, relationships and you've got associate positions. I might take a few notes myself. could you sort of give us a flavour of how those things have? I suppose there's a difference between sometimes things emerge and sometimes you plan for things, and maybe you could pick on something that you think is interesting, an associate position and how that came to be.
Oh gosh, I'm trying to think. So I think some have come, and I think a lot of it's actually come through relationships I've built, people I know, people I've been referred to, and just conversations I have with people. So I'm trying to think. I mean, some things you may be aware that I do work outdoors through an organization called Fresh Air Fridays. Well, I actually sought that out. I've heard about it, decided to go and do some training with them, but then became part of wanting to build that as a group. That has been impacted quite a lot by COVID and all of us having to be at home, but starting to rebuild that. So I think that one was, I just went out and sought it. Others have been through people I know. So I do some coaching with a company that focus on neurodiversity coaching, which is something I'm interested in. I was referred to that by somebody else.
Right.
So then they were looking for some coaches, someone thought of me. And so I think it's about putting out there what you're interested in.
Yeah.
And then things come.
Yeah. I mean, that makes sense to me, picking up and say, so you're interested in nature and outdoors and the health benefits of that and mental health benefits of that.
Yeah.
It's about doing what you love in a sense, and things being perhaps consistent about that, rather than seeking the money, rather than saying when you have half an eye on this is a business, there's a potential. Really, the starting point is, what is it that matters to me? What do I care about?
Yeah.
And so like neurodiversity is and we're all complex, aren't we? So there's lots of different. It's not just the one thing. It's often there are several things we're interested in.
Yeah.
I was just going to sort of touch briefly on the fact that one thing I found quite really helpful was, it's not about me, but just to sort of see if there's something similar. But I was really interested in working in startups and had worked in startups before, but by the nature of startups, they're like the opposite end of the spectrum to a big corporate in terms of security.
Yes.
And so I enjoyed that. However, it tended to earn no money whatsoever. But my sort of aha moment was when I spoke to my parents about my childhood, and we talked about me being adventurous, and that was like a sort of tag that or label. I thought, that's a good description. I like that. I could live with that. That could be me as well as how I work, albeit not many people are employing adventurers, but it's something I come back to as a way of describing myself, which is sort of like an entrepreneur, because they're quite adventurous, but it's not, doesn't come with some of the baggage that comes with. I wonder if there's anything that, so that's me. I'm an adventurer. Everything I do is an adventure. I seek adventure, and I could describe my life that way. I don't know if there's anything that sort of labels or anything that's really resonated for you that's helped you know who you are, I suppose. It's a bit hopeful as one label that describes one person, but curious what it triggers for you.
Yeah, I think I have always been very curious, and I've always asked loads of questions. I do remember my dad asking, and I'm sure lots of children are, aren't they? But you're always asking questions. You always want to learn stuff. So I think that I've always knew, I think from day one, I'd never be in a job where I was doing the same thing day in, day out.
Right. So you need to satisfy that curiosity.
Yeah. I mean, I started off as a programmer. I think many people, not everyone in business analysis, but lots of people have. I did. So people might think, oh, that's the same, but it's not, because every program's different, and you're always creating different stuff. But I think the people, I do enjoy connecting with people, so I think that's where that, I can't see myself just sitting coding. I was always out chatting to people.
Yeah, there's an old stereotype about the dark and dreamy, isn't there?
Yeah,
perhaps isn't true so much.
It's probably that. So I think it's of that for me. I've always had a love of learning, a curiosity, but wanting to share what I've learned with other people.
Okay.
So that's probably it.
Right. That's what you're seeing in the activities you choose to say you're part of your portfolio.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, which I suppose, so thinking back, on the business analysis side, I do mentor apprentices now. So I think through the BA Managers Forum, and I'm still involved with the BA Managers Forum, but that apprenticeship was developed through that forum. Companies are involved there with developing it. So when it came to fruition and became the thing that was happening, I was really keen to get involved in the mentoring side of that, and still love doing that.
Because that speaks to your spending time with people, learning about people.
Yeah.
Satisfying your curiosity. I guess everyone is fascinating in their own particular way.
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, and just thinking about when you were saying about your entrepreneurial, I mean, I have joined forces with a couple of people that was, well, one person in particular who started a business similar time to when I left, and I met him through a coaching group, and I've been working with him for quite a long time, thinking about how you might create a coaching service as part of his company. But I've also ended up doing some business analysis work with him. And it's a small company, and it just feels very different because it doesn't have some of the, what I would call the heaviness I used to get from, say, contracting or being in a bigger place, and they're creating their procedures, their processes, currently looking at their data and how best to manage the data. So it's the same skill set I'm using, but in a different environment. I think it's the environment that's making the difference.
I'm fascinated to get deeper into the environment and the heaviness. It's could you help people understand what that means a bit more?
Well, for me, the heaviness, and again, it's personal. I think you reach. I think for me, the heaviness came from what I just felt organization. I called it organizational treacle. Some of these large organizations,
trying
to deliver projects, get stuff done, spent most of my time in meetings, either trying to explain why I couldn't do it or how we were going to do it, but not actually doing it.
Right.
And that's the heaviness that used to get me down.
Right.
Whereas this is it feels lighter, but maybe because decisions happen quicker because it's a smaller organization. There's literally tens of people instead of thousands of people. So I'll do something, we get together, we discuss it. So that's when I say heaviness. I just felt weighed down sometimes by trying to get stuff done.
It's the sort of organization's oil tanker, isn't it, I guess? Yeah. No, certainly recognize that. Well, that's really helpful, actually. I think it's just to see what resonates with people who are listening as well, because I'm sure that will, and that sort of freedom to just do the job and not getting whatever you call it. The heaviness is a really good description for the bureaucracy and the stuff that is apparently necessary, but maybe why is it necessary? Is there anything else you wanted to share? Because I was going to talk about what you wanted to share in terms of tips, but before we got onto that,
well, I suppose this might be leading into tips actually, but I have got friends, colleagues who do still work in contracting, but they're negotiating a lot with actually what they want to do, as in how many days a week they want to work.
Wow.
And I've got friends who do contract, but actually say, well, I'm not going to work in the summer, or I'm going to take blocks of time off. So that starts to help them feel that they're more in control.
That's interesting. Well,
I don't know if more of these opportunities are coming up, or if I just happen to connect with people who are kind of going, well, this is what I want. And they've built a good reputation for themselves. They're seen as credible in what they do, and they've been able to negotiate what they want.
Maybe I should be speaking to some of these people, because it's certainly not my experience. But I was speaking to Grant before, and he was talking about the original vision was, well, I'll work 6 months a year, and he was laughing that never happened, and I remember that feeling and that failure to get anywhere close to anything like that. So maybe the market's changing, or maybe either way, maybe there's some people who are better equipped, let's say, to do that. But I'll probably follow up with you later to see if I want to. It's all a part of the transition as well. Is maybe it's about balance. So it's not necessarily leaving all this behind because it's so heavy and awful. It's about getting the balance right, so you are feeling happy in your working life. That could be part-time or time off or whatever, to do your own projects, just have time off or whatever. So I'll put a pin in that one if you don't mind.
No, that's fine.
So what top tip or two would you give contractors who are thinking, they've got this nagging doubt, this is not what I want to do for the next 10, 20 years?
So I think it is about giving yourself space to step back and say, actually, what is it I want to do? Because sometimes when, I had this feeling, this isn't what I want to do, but when I left it, there are parts of it I really do enjoy still. Because initially I found myself wanting to just completely run away from it. I've had enough of this. I don't want to do it anymore. I'm going to do something completely different.
Yeah.
Then when I left it, there was aspects of it that I did enjoy. So some of that is the connection, the sense of belonging to something. Actually, some of the projects I worked on were really good, and I do enjoy the skill set that I have. So I think it's about stepping back and thinking about what's really important to you in your life as a whole, and your work, and how you can fit all that together. Because obviously at different stages of life we have different needs.
Yeah,
we have different finance. I was fortunate that my children had both left home, so my financial needs, as in for caring for them and supporting them through school, university, had dropped. Then probably before that I wouldn't have left, because it was important to me to give them the best start in life that I wanted to. So I think it's looking at your life holistically and going, okay, so what's important to me, and where has my focus got to be at the moment?
So before your focus was on your children. When they no longer needed as much of your focus, you could put it back on yourself and get balanced a little bit more towards what you needed.
Yeah. And then I think it is about that tuning into what your strengths are and where you really want, how you want to use those. And almost taking, if you decide that actually for the moment you are going to stay in contracting, but am I in the right organization for me? Is there an opportunity to work somewhere else? Can I negotiate a different type of contract that will give me the space to do something else that I want to do? Or is it, I'm going to leave completely and completely do something else? And I think if you're going to leave and do something else, you can't sort it all. I found that there's loads to learn continually, but then I love learning. Some of it was ups and downs. It's suddenly, oh my gosh, there's a lot to do here, and I hadn't realized how much there was. But when I look back now, it all worked out.
I feel there's something important in the looking back in it or working out. Get perhaps caught up in the moment and panic, or as you say, you talked about not escaping, but more pausing and looking at what matters to you.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Looking at what matters to you, what's important to you, and then not necessarily, I suppose, jump till you're ready, but then don't procrastinate forever. Because I think if I hadn't been made redundant, I probably would have carried on procrastinating for quite a while. I think the draw to do something different was getting bigger and bigger. So at some point I would have changed, but it was almost like it's a fine balance. I think I had to step out my comfort zone to make stuff happen, which as an analyst isn't always easy, because I wanted to get all the ticks in all the right boxes before I did something. But sometimes you just have to launch yourself forward, and if you're that's why I think if you know what's important to you and what's driving you, you're prepared to take the risks.
I love that, actually. Yeah, that's really, really powerful. Just once you know what you want, then you'll take the risk. I just see it as an opportunity. I think life does present us with opportunities, and we can let the fear take over, but maybe the difference is if you don't really know what you want, fear is going to take over. But if you're clear on what you want, then you'll say, scary, however, I will take that step, without necessarily having all the plans, which I definitely recognize, of just allowing things to happen. Not necessarily saying is this safe? Is it safe for me to step forward yet? Is a recipe for never taking the step.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Corrine. It's been educational.
Well, thank you.
And, I really appreciate it. So I shall say goodbye there, and thank you very much for your time.
Okay, thank you. See you again soon.
Will do.